Hello everyone, I made this video to show you how to change the heating element in an Electrolux dryer. If you have an E64 error, then the heating element is probably going to be the problem. First thing I want to do is remove the power from the dryer. So we'll start by taking out the two screws in the back on the top of the dryer. Once I get those out, that will allow me to remove the top cover by sliding it back and just lifting it right off. Set that off to the side. Then I'm going to go around to the front and take the two screws off on the top here, and that'll allow me to remove the control panel. Once I get the control panel loose, I want to remove the connector here, and then I can set that off to the side and remove the two screws on the top of the front of the dryer. Okay, next I'm going to open the door, and inside the door you'll see a screw here that needs to be removed, and then there is another one on the other side right here that will get removed. Now I'm going to close the door and slightly tilt back the dryer, and I'm going to block it up with a couple of 2x4s here so that I can get to the bottom screws. There's one here right along the bottom, and it does help to lift it up and put a block or two underneath, and there's another one on the other side right here. So I'll take those both out and set the dryer back down, and then I can just gently pull up and the front cover will come off. Now down here there's a plug. I can unplug that, and then I can take the front bulkhead off, and I'll start with the two screws here that hold the control board, and I'll go down to the bottom, and there's a screw down here as well. Next, I'll remove the one on the other side. And finally, I need to disconnect. There's two plugs here. And put the wires out of the way. I can lower my control board down. It's kind of hooked onto the front bulkhead. Then I can gently remove the bulkhead front of the washer, and I'm going to spin it around and set it off to the side for now. And I'm going to go into the inside of the washer. Is kind of hard to see here, but you can see this is my tensioner here, and I want to release the belt, so I push my tensioner and let the belt fall loose. Make sure it's not hooked on anything. Then I can grab my belt and the front of the drum and just lift the drum up and slide it out the front of the dryer here. Now this dryer collects a lot of lint and debris, so this is a very good time to vacuum out the inside before you put it back together. So I'm going to remove this wire here so I can set this bulkhead out of the way while I work on the heating element so it doesn't fall over. Once I get that just disconnected, I can start here. There's a screw on the back side of this heating element tube. It's just a zip screw. Socket ought to be able to remove that fairly easy. It just comes right out. Then there's two screws on the legs for the heating element here that I'm going to remove, one on either side. And once I get that removed, I can just slide the heating element back and set it on its side, and I'll start removing the sensors that are down on the side of the heating element here. Just remember where they came from and put them back in the same order that they were removed. Once I get the heating element out, I'm going to do a test on it to make sure that was the issue, and I'll show you how I do that in just a minute here. Disconnect the ground, and then we can take it over to the table and test it. You can see on this heating element there's 3 legs, so I'm going to put the meter on ohms and put one lead on the ground and then put one lead on each element. And if it comes to 0 or a very low number on ohms, that means that the element is good. If it's an open circuit, that means that the element has some issues. So next I'm going to remove the shield on the front of the heater element tube, and we can look inside, and the one that showed up bad, that one's good. That one's good, and this one is bad here from here down. So let's go around to the other side and let's test it halfway through, because this loops down and back to the, and that's good there. That one's good as well, and right here, and you can see I'm getting nothing. So you can see here, it's kind of hard to tell, but you can see that the one element is broke about halfway down on the return side. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the element. That's what the problem was. Here's my new element. Now I'm going to do a test on this one just to show you what all three legs should look like. So I put my lead on the negative and one on here, and that one's good. That's a good connection, and that is also a good connection. So now I need to put my heat shield back on the heating element. So I just put my 2 screws back in. Then I'm going to take my heating element back over to the dryer. Now on the old piece there was a little button here that had to connect to the negative lead. I won't need that for this one since it's already on there, and I can just plug my ground into there and then turn it over and start putting my sensors back into place the way that I removed them. Okay, once I get my sensors installed, I can go ahead and hook up my heater plugs here. Doesn't matter which one goes where on this, but I went ahead and put them back in the exact same orders because of the length of the wires. Next, I'm going to take my heating element and put it into place, and I want to start with the screw right here. So I'll slide my heating element into place and make sure I line up that screw hole, and I can put the screw in here and tighten that down. And then I can put the 2 screws back in for the legs on the heating element. And then I'm going to start reassembly of the dryer. I'm going to start with the drum. I'll grab the belt in the front of the drum and slide it into place in the back. I want to make sure everything lines up in the back so that my drum spins correctly and make sure my belt's not twisted. And then I take the tensioner, put the belt above the tensioner, and then put the belt around the pulley on the motor and then pull down on the tensioner. It's kind of hard to see here. Let me get it on and I'll show you a different view of how the routing of the belt is once I get it on here. So if we go in here, you can see the tensioner. It goes around the back of the belt, and then the front goes around the pulley on the motor. So we're going to put the wire back in the bulkhead of the washer. Just plugs right in, and you want to make sure that the bottom of this bulkhead goes around the bottom of the drum, and that's what it rests on, and it rolls there. And there's little tabs on the side top here that you might have to push in with a screwdriver. This one looks like it got bent out a little bit when I took it off. I'll just push that in with the screwdriver, and the other one just slides right in. There it is. So once I get that hooked on there, I can take my drum and I want to make sure that it spins freely, that it's hooked into the bulkhead correctly, and then I can start putting the screws back into the front of the dryer. Got my control board. Now this hooks on, so it has to be hooked in first, and then there's 2 screws that go back in here. Once it's hooked into place, the holes should line right up. You can see there's little holes in the front of the dryer where the pins match up from the front. Let me plug this in, and then all I need to do is line up the pins with the holes, and it should hold it into place. Just push it in, and then I can start reinstalling the screws that I removed. And again, I'm going to push my dryer up, block it, and then I can screw the bottom 2 screws in. So next I'm going to remove the blocks, just makes it a little bit more stable to work on. Can open the door and reinstall the 2 screws on the inside of the door. Then I want to make sure I go back up and plug in my control board before I start putting any more together. There's 2 plugs here. Just snap right into place. And then there is one more plug that goes into the control panel that goes on top front of the dryer, and there's little tabs here that go into the holes. You want to make sure you get those in, as well as there's a little hook right here that goes into the side over here of the front. So there's a few things you got to line up on the control panel to make it fit nice and snug. So start out with the tabs in the side here, and you can see how it hooks into the front and slides down. Then the pins will line up with the bottom front of the dryer. So then I can put my 2 screws that hold the control panel in. Then I'm going to grab my top, and that goes on from the back. Just set it on, slide it underneath the control panel, push it forward, and there's the screws on the back that get put back together. And that's how to replace the heating element in an Electrolux dryer. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. I'm How To Bob. Thanks for watching.